We'd like to talk a little bit now about how the revolution ends. It ends with the Treaty of Paris of 1783. It's not the only Treaty of Paris that the United States ever signed. It seems like lots of treaties are signed there, but this one ends the Revolutionary War. The folks who we send over to negotiate the treaty for us include some pretty notable figures, such as Ben Franklin, instrumental in the founding of this country, John Adams, again a future president, and John Jay, author or one of the authors of the Constitution and later um, Secretary of State, and again very active in our government throughout its history. Uh, Terms of the treaty. What did the treaty agree to? On the one hand, the British obviously first and foremost acknowledged our independence. So Great Britain basically said, "Yeah, okay, we get it. You guys are now your own country. See you later." It also goes ahead and expands our western boundary, whereas before, remember, one of the things the colonists really objected to was the Proclamation of 1763, which basically set the western boundary of the colonies at the Appalachian Mountains. The Treaty of Paris extends that boundary all the way to the Mississippi River, and it sets our northern boundary along what today would be Canada, the Great Lakes, and St. Lawrence Seaway, and all of that. Um, and again, that was something that was kind of at the time not clearly understood. That would go ahead and be an issue for years to come about exactly where that was. But the northern boundary again is recognized as Canada, and also it recognizes American fishing rights off the coast of Newfoundland. This was a really big deal for the New Englanders. There were some pretty rich fishing grounds, lots of codfish off the coast of Newfoundland, and we had the right to go and try to make use of that resource. And we also then agreed that Florida was going to be given back to Spain. This is really a concession to the French. The French and the Spanish monarchies uh, were close linked by marriage, and so really this was something that the French sought to make sure that the Spanish had access to Florida, and that Florida would remain Spanish. Um, Americans didn't necessarily like this, but we were willing to concede and accept it, although we really fully felt that through the course of time, Florida would become part of the United States, and in fact, of course, it did. The Americans, on the other hand, would allow British creditors to collect from American citizens. So, if an American citizen had a debt to a British citizen or to a British bank, they would be allowed to go ahead and collect those debts. And we agreed that we would return any land that was confiscated from loyalists during the war; that they would get their property back. So the Americans' agreements as a result of the treaty not nearly so lengthy as the British, but nonetheless we made concessions as well. Some of the significant changes brought about by the revolution. Economically, there really weren't any, other than the fact that we were allowed to keep doing what we'd already been doing, which was kind of one of the things we didn't like about the British, that they were trying to tell us you can't do that anymore. Well, now they can't tell us that, so we can keep doing whatever we want and go about our business. So economic changes, there's not really too many. There are an awful lot of social changes, though, brought about by the revolution. For instance, in the northern states, slavery is abolished, really the beginning of the abolition movement. A lot of slaves were freed for their role in the revolution. They had helped to fight to win this country's freedom, and so a lot of slaves gained their freedom. Uh, the slave trade itself was abolished throughout the country after the revolution. This seems like a big deal, but in reality, the South already had a large enough slave population that it was self-sustaining. In other words, they could continue uh, the institution of slavery just simply by the number of slaves that were being born in the South. But nonetheless, we would not be buying any more slaves coming from Africa after the American Revolution. The slave trade is abolished. The church in a lot of colonies loses its political position. In other words, a lot of the colonies had um, official churches prior to the Revolution, and after the Revolution, a lot of the colonies will drop that. There will no longer be an official church. Really, Virginia kind of leads the way on this and adopts really separation of church and state, which will become the standard later when we write our Constitution. It's important to note, though, that really through the first part of our history, all the way up through the 1830s, even after the Constitution, many states did have official religions. Massachusetts, chief among them, I believe they were the last to give it up. All the way until the 1830s, Massachusetts had an official state religion, which is interesting given our current understanding of the Constitution. Um, but nonetheless, the church does start to lose its political position throughout the United States. The political changes Most states will adopt bicameral legislatures as a result of the American Revolution. So, in other words, we have an upper house and a lower house, which was very much modeled by our federal government. And a lot of countries begin to look to America as an example. We become, as the Puritans kind of desired, a city upon a hill, a light to the world. And so other countries will begin to look to, especially not so much our country itself, but the founding principles, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, equality. Those start to become ideals to which other countries aspire. And that is certainly a significant political change that takes place as a result of our American Revolution.